What if I told you that the biggest, most expensive piece of gear in your ice fishing sled might be the very thing costing you trophy fish? Today, we're tackling one of the oldest, most heated debates in ice fishing, the 10-inch hole. Is it a gateway to giants, or is it a spotlight of death that sends every monster running for the hills? Stick around because we're going to cut through all the noise and give you a straight answer. By the end of this video, you'll know if your auger is helping or hurting your chances. The answer isn't as simple as yes or no, and it might just explain why some days you mark giants on your flasher, but can't get a single one to commit. Before we even start, drop a comment. 10-inch or 6-inch? What's your go-to and why? Let the battle begin. For years, the thinking in ice fishing has often been bigger is better. You see that massive 10-inch auger in the store and you start dreaming. You imagine a 30-inch walleye or a 40-inch pike that just wouldn't fit through a dinky little 6-inch hole. Buying that big auger feels like an investment in optimism, a commitment to catching a true monster. But then you hear the old-timers muttering on the ice. They see your giant hole and just shake their heads. They talk about a column of light punching through the dark, quiet world under the ice. They call it a spotlight that makes wary old fish turn and bolt before they ever even see your lure. So anglers get stuck in this classic fisherman's dilemma. On one hand, you don't want to lose the fish of a lifetime at the hole. On the other, you don't want to scare it away before you even get a bite. It's a debate that's caused arguments in ice shacks for generations. So let's start with the core argument for the spotlight of death. The theory is pretty straightforward. Under a thick layer of ice and snow, the world is dark and muted. A fish's environment is stable. When you drill a hole, you introduce a sudden, intense source of light from above. The bigger the hole, the bigger and brighter that column of light is. A 10-inch hole has more than double the surface area of a 6-inch hole. That's a lot more light flooding down. The thinking is that a wise old trophy fish, one that's survived for years by being cautious, will see this unnatural, bright spotlight from a distance and immediately become wary. It's like someone shining a bright flashlight in your face in a dark room. Your first instinct isn't to walk towards it, it's to shy away. For a predator that relies on ambush and stealth, this sudden change could signal danger, sending them into a negative or neutral mood. Now, let's think about a fish's world under the ice. Their eyes are adapted to low-light conditions. Many of the predator fish we target, like walleye, have excellent vision in the dark. Their eyes are designed to gather as much light as possible. This is what makes them such effective hunters at dawn and dusk. So, when a massive direct beam of sunlight punches through the ice above them, it can be overwhelming and unnatural. Imagine you're a big walleye, cruising along a weed edge in 20 feet of water. Your world is a mix of dim light and shadows. Suddenly, a new, intensely bright circle appears above. It's not just light, it's a stark contrast to the surrounding environment. This sudden, high-contrast light source is something that just doesn't happen in nature. It's a legitimate reason for a fish that has survived by being cautious to think something isn't right here and simply avoid that area entirely. But here's where it gets complicated: water clarity. The spotlight theory holds a lot more water, so to speak, in ultra-clear lakes. If you're fishing a gin-clear trout lake, that column of light from a 10-inch hole is going to penetrate deep and be highly visible. In this situation, the spotlight of death is a very real possibility. However, what if you're fishing a stained, murky river system or a reservoir with an algae bloom? In that dirty water, light penetration is significantly reduced. That bright spotlight at the surface might only penetrate a few feet before it diffuses into a gentle, ambient glow. A fish sitting in 15 or 20 feet of stained water might not even notice the difference between a 6-inch and a 10-inch hole above. The water itself acts as a natural diffuser, nullifying the harsh spotlight effect. So, the first question you have to ask isn't about your auger, but about the water you're fishing in. Following that same logic, consider the depth you're fishing. The deeper you go, the less the surface light matters. Light intensity decreases exponentially with depth. If you're hole hopping for panfish in 6 feet of clear water, a 10-inch hole might indeed be spooking the entire school. The light is intense, your shadow passes over it, and every movement is magnified. But if you're chasing lake trout in 80 feet of water, do you really think that fish can tell the difference between a 6-inch and 10-inch light source so far above? By the time the light reaches that depth, it's so scattered and dim that the difference in origin size is negligible. The fish is far more likely to be reacting to the vibration of your lure, your line in the water, or the pressure waves from your jigging motion than the faint ambient light from the surface. In deep water scenarios, the spotlight of death theory almost completely falls apart. So, we've established that light can be a factor, but does it actually spook fish, or does it sometimes attract them? It's not always a repellent. Think about it. Small baitfish are often drawn to light, and where the baitfish go, the predators will follow. In some situations, especially during low light periods like dawn or dusk, that little bit of extra light from your hole can illuminate your lure and make it more visible. It can create just enough glow to catch a predator's eye from farther away. Some anglers will even intentionally shine a light down their hole at night to attract crappies, which in turn can attract opportunistic walleyes. So to say that light is always a negative is just plain wrong. It can be a tool. The spotlight of death could, in the right circumstances, become a beacon of lunch for an aggressive fish. The key is understanding when that might be the case. Let's talk about the sound difference for a moment, because we focus so much on the light that we forget about the noise. A 10-inch auger has to cut more than twice the amount of ice as a 6-inch auger. That means the engine is running longer, the blades are grinding for a longer period, and the overall vibration and noise being sent through the ice and into the water column is significantly greater. Many seasoned anglers will argue that the extended, louder noise of drilling a massive hole is far more likely to spook a wary fish than the light that comes through after the fact. The fish feels that vibration long before it ever sees the light, so you could be clearing the fish out of the area before you even finish drilling. If you're in shallow water, this effect is amplified. A quick, quiet 6-inch hole might go unnoticed, while a loud, grinding 10-inch cut sends them packing. Now we have to look at the other side of the coin, the trophy landing argument. This is the whole reason people buy 10-inch augers in the first place. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, more heartbreaking in fishing than hooking the fish of a lifetime, fighting it all the way to the hole, and then losing it because you can't get its head to turn up. A giant walleye with its gill plates flared, or a big pike thrashing wildly, can easily get stuck or pop the hook on the sharp edge of the ice in a smaller hole. A 6-inch hole is tiny when you have a 35-inch fish thrashing below it. An 8-inch hole is better, but a 10-inch hole is a massive advantage. It gives you room to maneuver the fish, to get its head started upwards, and to safely land it without panic. It turns a moment of high anxiety into a confident landing. Let's paint a picture. Imagine this scenario. You've been fighting a monster northern pike for 10 minutes on a tip-up. It's peeling drag, making powerful runs. You finally get it tired out and guide it towards the hole. You see its massive head appear, but it's wider than the 6-inch hole you drilled. You try to turn it, but it panics and thrashes. The braided line scrapes against the sharp bottom edge of the ice. With one violent headshake, the line snaps. The fish is gone. You are left with nothing but a frayed line and a sick feeling in your stomach. Now, imagine that same scenario with a 10-inch hole. The fish's head comes up easily. You have plenty of room to reach down and grab it, or to guide it onto the ice. The difference is night and day. In that moment, you will never again care about a spotlight of death. You'll only care about the fish you didn't lose. So, you can think of the 10-inch hole as an insurance policy. You might not need it for 99% of the fish you catch. Your average keeper walleye, or perch, will slide right up a 6-inch hole with no problem. But you aren't buying that auger for the average fish. You're buying it for the 1%, for the fish of a lifetime. It's for the day when that true giant decides to bite your lure. When that happens, the potential for spooking a few smaller fish with a bigger hole seems like a tiny price to pay for the security of knowing you can actually land the monster when it bites. For anglers specifically targeting trophy-class fish, especially big pike, lake trout, or catfish, a 10-inch hole isn't a luxury. It's often considered a necessity. It's part of planning for success. But what about the pressure changes? This is something few anglers talk about. When you drill a hole, you're not just letting light in, you're changing the pressure dynamics in the immediate area. Water is heavy. When you remove a cylinder of ice, water rushes up into the hole to equalize the pressure. A 10-inch hole displaces a much larger volume of water than a 6-inch hole. This creates a more significant pressure wave and current right below the hole. A fish's lateral line is incredibly sensitive to these pressure changes. It's how they detect prey and predators. A sudden, significant pressure shift from a 10-inch hole being drilled could be another unnatural signal that alerts or spooks fish. It's another variable in the equation that suggests a smaller, more subtle approach might be better in some situations, especially with finicky fish. Let's get specific and talk about species, starting with the king of the ice, the walleye. Walleyes are famously light-sensitive. They have that reflective layer in their eyes, the tapetum lucidum, which helps them see in the dark. This also makes them uncomfortable in bright, direct light. For this reason, targeting walleyes in shallow, clear water with a 10-inch hole on a bright sunny day is probably a bad idea. You are playing against their natural instincts. However, most serious walleye fishing happens at dawn, dusk, or at night. In these low-light conditions, the spotlight is minimal. Furthermore, if you're fishing deeper structure in 20 or 30 feet of water, the argument becomes even weaker. For trophy walleyes, an 8-inch hole is often seen as the perfect compromise, but a 10-incher provides peace of mind if you're on a true giant factory. Now, let's think about a completely different beast, the giant northern pike. Pike are aggressive, visual predators, but they aren't nearly as skittish about light as a walleye. They are often found in shallower water, but their aggressive nature means they are less likely to be deterred by a bit of light if they see a potential meal. The primary concern with pike is not spooking them, it's landing them. A 40-inch pike has a head like a shovel and a body like a log. Trying to pull one of those through a 6 or even an 8-inch hole is a recipe for disaster. Their teeth can shred your line on the ice edge in a split second. For serious pike anglers, a 10-inch hole is the minimum standard. The risk of losing the fish at the hole is 100 times greater than the risk of spooking it with a bit of extra light. And then there's the deep water demon, the lake trout. These fish often live in extremely clear water, but they also live at extreme depths. It's common to fish for them in 50, 80, or even over 100 feet of water. As we discussed at these depths, the spotlight effect from the surface is almost zero. The fish simply won't notice. However, lake trout can grow to immense sizes. A 30 or 40-pound fish is a real possibility in many bodies of water. These fish are thick and powerful. Just like with pike, the number one priority is having a hole big enough to manage the fish once you get its head up. For lakers, a 10-inch hole is standard equipment. No serious lake trout angler is going to risk losing a fish of a lifetime because they were worried about a spotlight 100 feet above its head. Here's a huge factor most people forget: snow cover. A foot of snow on top of the ice is the great equalizer. Snow is fantastic at blocking and diffusing light. If you have significant snow cover, you could drill a 12-inch hole and it would still be quite dark underneath. The snow acts like a giant lampshade, turning that harsh, direct spotlight into a very soft ambient glow. On a lake with no snow and bright sun, the difference between a 6 and 10-inch hole is dramatic. But on that same lake after a blizzard, the difference is almost nothing. So, a smart angler adapts. On bare ice, early season conditions, maybe you stick with a smaller hole. Once a good layer of snow builds up, you can break out the 10-inch auger with confidence, knowing the snow cover is providing all the camouflage you need. If you want to understand the effect of a hole in the ice, a darkhouse spear fisherman could tell you a thing or two. These guys sit in a pitch-black shack staring into a huge rectangular hole in the ice. That hole illuminates the underwater world like a giant television screen. And guess what? Huge fish, including massive pike and sturgeon, swim into that light all the time. They are often curious about the light and the decoy. This proves that a large, bright opening in the ice is not an automatic fish repellent. It can actually draw fish in. Of course, the spear fisherman has the advantage of being completely hidden in the darkness of the shack. This tells us that it might not be the light from the hole itself, but the movement and shadows from the angler standing over the hole that is the real problem. So, if we accept that the spotlight can be a problem in certain conditions, how can we mitigate it? The easiest way is to simply use the snow that's already on the ice. After you drill your hole, don't just kick all the snow and slush away. Build up a small mound of snow around the hole, especially on the side where the sun is coming from. This snowbank will act as a shield, blocking the direct sunlight from entering the hole. It helps to reduce the harshness of the light and create a more ambient glow. It's a simple, free trick that can make a huge difference, especially when you're fishing in shallow water on a sunny day. It allows you to have the benefit of a large hole without the full-blown spotlight effect. It takes 30 seconds and can make a world of difference to wary fish. Another simple trick is managing the slush in your hole. Many anglers are obsessed with scooping every last bit of slush out of the hole to have a perfectly clean opening. But a thin layer of slush floating on the top of the water can act as a natural light filter. It's like putting a frosted glass lid on your hole. It breaks up the direct light rays and creates a much more diffused, natural light underneath. You obviously need to clear enough slush to get your transducer in and to avoid your line freezing. But leaving a little bit in there can be a smart stealth tactic. You can have your big 10-inch hole for landing fish, but with a slushy filter on top, you reduce the spotlight effect significantly. It's about finding a balance between practicality and stealth. Let's try to put this to a practical, real-world test you can do yourself. The next time you're on the ice in relatively clear water, set up 2 tip-ups or dead sticks at the same depth and with the same bait. Drill a 6-inch hole for one and a 10-inch hole for the other. Place them about 20 or 30 yards apart. Do this for a few trips and keep a log. See which one gets more flags. You can also do this with your fish finder. Drill a 10-inch hole and watch for fish. If you mark fish that won't commit, try drilling a 6-inch hole nearby and see if their attitude changes. While not perfectly scientific, this kind of on-the-ice experimentation is what separates the good anglers from the great ones. Don't just believe the theories. Test them for yourself in the areas you fish. The results might surprise you. So what do the professionals and guides actually do? The guys who are on the ice 200 days a year. Most of them own multiple augers. They don't subscribe to a one-size-fits-all philosophy. When they are guiding clients for panfish in the shallows, they are likely using a lightweight 6 or 8-inch auger for speed and stealth. When they are on a body of water known for trophy pike or lake trout, the 10-inch auger comes out without a second thought. They understand that the tool needs to match the job. Their decision is based on the target species and the potential size of the fish, first and foremost. The environmental conditions like water clarity and snow cover are secondary considerations that dictate how they fish around the hole, not whether they drill it in the first place. So the final verdict isn't really about the size of the hole itself. It's about the angler using it. The spotlight of death is less about the hole and more about a lack of awareness. The real culprit is often the angler's shadow passing over the hole, the noise of them stomping around on the ice, or the unnatural movements of their lure. A 10-inch hole doesn't inherently scare fish, but it can magnify the mistakes of a careless angler. A stealthy, quiet angler fishing over a 10-inch hole will outfish a loud, clumsy angler fishing over a 6-inch hole every single time. The focus should be less on the diameter of the hole and more on your overall approach to stealth. The hole is just one small piece of a much larger puzzle. So, after all that, is the 10-inch hole a spotlight of death? The answer is, it depends. It's not the simple yes or no that everyone wants to hear. The real killer isn't the size of the hole itself, but how, where, and when you use it. In shallow, clear water with no snow on a sunny day, yes, it can absolutely be a negative factor that spooks fish. But in deep water, in stained water, or when there's heavy snow cover, its benefit for easily landing a giant fish far outweighs any potential for spooking them. The biggest takeaway, the real aha moment here is this. We worry so much about the hole, but we forget about everything else we do. The noise of the auger, the stomping on the ice, the shadows we cast. Those are the real spotlights of death. The hole size is just one small piece of a much larger puzzle of stealth. This changes how you should approach your setup. Instead of just asking, what size auger should I buy? You should be asking, what are the conditions today and who am I fishing for? And choosing your tool based on that. It's about being a smarter, more adaptable angler, not just the guy with the biggest auger on the lake. Thanks for sticking with us through this deep dive. If this gave you something to think about for your next trip on the ice, do us a huge favor and hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss our next video where we break down another fishing myth. Now I really want to know, has this video changed your mind at all? Or are you still a die-hard 10-inch or 6-inch angler no matter what? Let's get the debate going in the comments below. See you on the ice.